All right, here we go. And here we go. Okay. So welcome everyone. Welcome to Volunteer Tax Consulting for Foreign Nationals and Tax Residents. My name is Maria Clark. I see some familiar faces out there that I'm really happy to see. I saw some familiar names on the remote attendees. I'm so excited to have you all here. And I want to start by saying thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much for being willing to donate your time, your Tuesday evenings, your Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Saturdays and all of those future days to help people do their taxes for free. We really couldn't do this kind of a program without all of you. And I want to say thank you just to start us off. I know that all of the people we help will say thank you as well, but that's a long time between now and then. So thank you, thank you. All right, so let's talk about the agenda for today. So we're going to start off November 12th. We're going to do a little kickoff, talk about IRS requirements, clinic overview, and then non-resident aliens. Sometime around 7 o'clock-ish, we are going to switch over to resident taxes, and we'll go into taxes for them. But that'll be the general process. We'll start off with non-residents and then take a little break and then jump into residents for the fall training. On December 10th, we are planning to take the foreign student test. Generally, we suggest that you all come here and do that with us. It's just a little easier to make sure you get it done before finals start or get too far into them. But it's not required. You can do it on your own. And then on December 11th, we'll do the same thing on the resident test. And the goal is for winter break, everybody's going to be done, go home, relax. You don't need to think about this until you come back in January. All right, so as we think about this a little bit more, I'm going to start off with some existential questions because every tax training process should start off with some philosophy. Then we'll go into some volunteer requirements, talk about resources, and then get into some certification training, standards of conduct, intake interview quality review, and then foreign student. Then we're going to talk a little bit about our Moodle course. Everybody should have gotten the invitation for the Moodle course today. If you didn't, that means that you are not on the roster. So please make sure you talk to me. Send me an email at volunteer@nrtaxhelp.org. And we'll make sure everybody has that when we're finished here. Then we'll take a break and switch to resident tax. All right, question number one, why are we here? Very big question with a relatively simple answer, right? We are here to help people. That's really what volunteering is about. We're here to help. And in particular, we're going to focus on helping international students, scholars, teachers, and researchers prepare their taxes. Why these people in particular, and why this kind of help? Well, all of these people have some sort of tax form or filing return that they need to make. These individuals also generally receive little to no support to do this from their sponsoring organization. They often don't know how to do it themselves. And there are a few other good options for them. Most free tax sites won't help these individuals. Most free software does not work for this type of a return. Purchase software is not cheap. It's very easy to choose the wrong software and get a return that's incorrect. Often paid preparers don't know how to do this, and those that do are super expensive. And there can really be lifelong consequences to our customers for filing incorrectly. This can impact their ability to get another visa, to get a green card, to get citizenship in the future. So we're going to here to try to make sure that life does not take a really bad turn for them in this way. Expanding on number one, who do we want to help? It's very simple, people who need help with their taxes. Now, unfortunately, we can't help everybody. The IRS VITA program has limits on things like the type of income, the residency status. Our software has limits based on income or the type of return. We can only do current year returns. And then we also put limits in as well. We say that we'll help anybody with a school, nonprofit, or government email address, and that we don't do amended returns. Beyond that, though, we're going to welcome all clients who meet our criteria. Our partners also have some pretty strong opinions about who we help and who we don't help, just in general. So here are a few of those things. The IRS has some pretty strong words about you cannot discriminate, like who you will help based on race, color, national origin. I can't even read that, so I'm going to read that in there. Reprisal, disability, age, and activities supported by the IRS. The Minnesota Department of Revenue has a very extensive list of the criteria that we cannot choose to help people or not help people based on. It includes a whole big list that I'm not going to go through. But the fundamental idea here, right, is that we're just here to help people with taxes, right? We don't care about any of this stuff. If we look at all of the schools that you as our volunteers work at or go to school at, and that our clients attend, they all have similar policies about providing access without regard to any sort of criteria, race, religion, so on and so forth. So we're going to follow all of those rules. We're going to keep it simple and say, we'd like to help you do your taxes. And that's how we're going to do it. So moving on to existential question number 2. So why are we here? Who are we? So we are a national coalition of organizations that work together to provide free tax services. I'm the executive director of North, which is the non-resident tax help group. And we partner with student organizations and schools all across the United States to help people with their taxes. This is just a subset of those organizations. Where did we come from? We started in 2010, have been growing ever since. Last year, we had 23 trained volunteers. We did over 3,000 returns and put $1.7 million of federal refunds back in our customers' pockets. So we really want to do this. It is a very valuable service to all of the people that we help. And we help people all around the United States and all around the world. Our plans for 2024, right? Where are we going? We're going to keep on growing. We're going to keep on supporting new people. We've got some new partnerships that we're working with. We're working with Newman University down in Kansas, Bard College out in Ohio, Concordia University here in St. Paul, and some others that are in the works but are not really official yet. We're also looking to expand the states that we support. We already have a handful. We're going to add Ohio, Idaho, Oregon, and others to be determined as we add new partners in. And our target number of people to support is 5,000 people, which is a lot of people, but I see a lot of volunteers out here, so I'm very excited about being able to try to do that. And our plan is to also try to better enable students to prepare and file their own taxes. We'll get into this in the spring, but we have a lot of tools and guides to help them with this process. You'll learn all about those once you've learned the tax software. And we're going to continue to make improvements on those to make it even easier for students to file correctly with a minimal amount of help. And our final question, I think it's our final question, right? How are we going to get there? We're going to get there as a part of the IRS VITA program, which stands for Volunteer Income Tax Assistance. It provides free basic tax return to qualified individuals. The general criteria, low to moderate income individuals and limited English speaking individuals are the primary criteria that we're serving. That program structure provides for specialized training, a defined process for doing returns, support from the IRS, and volunteer liability protection. Those things are all fabulous. The only catch is you have to pass some tax clinic process and tax law tests, and you have to agree to follow the processes here at the tax clinic. All right, those are very important. They are there for the clients and they are there for you to make sure you are not in trouble. We offer 2 volunteer certification paths. So for our general tax volunteer, you can study non-resident tax only. You'll have 3 IRS tests that you have to pass: the standards of conduct, intake interview, and quality review, and then the foreign student. If you want to be an advanced tax volunteer, you're going to do the non-resident and the resident as well. You're going to add the advanced test to that list of tests. And a couple notes on that. So these tests, they are open book, open note, open computer, no time limit. They are not open friend. Passing grade is 80%, and you get 2 chances to pass. And everything we do between now and December 10th and 11th is all aimed at preparing you to be successful in those tests. All right. The next thing you're going to have to do is a volunteer agreement. This volunteer agreement is automatically generated in the IRS testing system. It includes a summary of your test results. We also need to verify your volunteer agreement with a government-issued ID. This can be a driver's license or a passport, and it does not have to be a US passport. I'm sorry to say that there are some bad actors out there that have viewed VITA tax clinics as a way to steal people's information, to steal their identity, and to commit fraud. And so that is why the IRS has implemented this process to try to make sure that those that are known bad actors cannot volunteer again and get access to that confidential information. As you go through the process, your name on your volunteer paperwork must match your name on your photo ID. So no nicknames when you create your information in Link and Learn. We have a volunteer data questionnaire that's going to be out there. We're going to need your legal name, whatever that is, and then we need the name that you prefer. They do not have to be the same. It doesn't matter what your name is that you prefer. But when it comes to your legal name, it does have to match the information on your ID and on your volunteer paperwork. You will sign electronically and send us a copy that you're going to abide by the volunteer standards of conduct, which we're going to talk about here in just a few moments. All right, so let's talk about your role as a volunteer. You are not expected to be an expert at this. You are expected to become good at finding information, but we do also expect you to use trusted resources like the IRS. Google and ChatGPT are not reliable resources, so please do not use them. And you are expected to ask for help when you do not know, right? The most important thing that we want to do for our clients is to make sure that the tax return they prepare is correct. So if you do not know, that is okay. Just ask. As new volunteers, you are expected to make mistakes. Our goal is to have you make most of them during training. But again, if you are not sure, just ask. I will never be angry if you ask. There's no such thing as a too silly or stupid question. Through this program, you're going to be part of what's called a facilitated self-assistance tax site. That's a very fancy way of saying DIY plus help. So the clients are going to prepare their own returns. You are going to be helping them with it. You are not going to be sitting there. They're not going to give you your forms and then you type everything into the software. They are going to be doing those steps. You are going to be there to help them with that. You are never going to sign a tax return as a volunteer here. Do not sign. There will be an electronic filing number that gets added automatically in the software, but you will not need to sign anything at all. As you are talking to the taxpayers, do try to keep the taxpayer information confidential. If you look around here in the room, obviously those online can't see it, but we're in a stadium style classroom and there's a bunch of people relatively close to you. So if you come up to a volunteer or to a client and they're in a situation like this, you do not need to yell or shout or all over the hallway. Hey, this person had a kid, what do they need to do? Right? We're gonna come over and talk and say, can you come over and help me? I have a question about this taxpayer situation. Be courteous, right? Sometimes people have really great nights here. Sometimes people have really bad nights here. So be courteous, be polite, but also do not allow the clients to interpret the rules, right? You guys are going to go through a lot of training and knowledge gathering to be successful at this. You are going to know this information much better than those clients will. All right. For all of the modules, for all of our training, for all of the tests, for all of the tax clinics, reference materials are your friend, right? Open book, open note, open computer, open training materials. You do not have to memorize everything. We are not doing a CPA or an EA exam here. You can use your books and find the information that you need. That's going to be one of the things that you're going to learn how to do, is how to find that information quickly and then ask for help. So I will also say, right, I can't give you any answers for the test. I'm not going to. And I don't want to just give you an answer at the tax clinic, right? I want to teach you how to find that answer so that next time you're going to be equipped to do that and go help that client on your own. And then finally, most importantly, we want you to be successful, right? This is not a grading type of environment. You know, there is no curve that we need to apply. If everybody passes, that is the best thing in the world. That is my goal, to help you all do that. So we want you to be successful. If you need help, please ask. Holy buckets, what did I do? All right, let's try it again. All right, resources. Here's some information, some of the various publications that you're going to use on the Moodle course. They are links, live links for all of those as well. The IRS releases forms sometimes in the November, December, January timeframe. So if you see a link out on the Moodle website, or if you go to just the regular IRS website, there is a chance that it's still a draft form. So make sure you look carefully to see, is it tax year 2024? Or is it an old form that says still 2023? But we'll have publications. I will show everybody that's here. People on remote can see, this is the 4011. This is the volunteer foreign student guide. This beast is the 4012, which is the resident guide. Yes, it is very big. We use about this much of it generally, so it's just covers a lot. It's very exhaustive, but that's great, right? All of that information is there at your fingertips. All right, let's talk about Link and Learn, everybody's favorite IRS system. So it is under construction right now. Last year was a fiasco, if I'm being very polite. They had a new vendor, they had major issues launching it. Now they have another new vendor, and supposedly it will be available mid to late November. They have not even publicized the website for it yet, so we can't even try to go do anything. However, as soon as I have any information, I will definitely share it with everybody. We're just kind of in a waiting pattern until they let it go. I know their target is to release it on November 15th. Personally, I'm kind of thinking it's going to be Thanksgiving, but we'll see how it goes. All right. If you want to just leave your thing up here somewhere, that's awesome. Thank you. If we have any CPAs or enrolled agents, if you want to volunteer with us, you can get continuing education credits for your volunteering with us. You must certify to the advanced level. So you're going to be one of those non-resident plus resident people. There's a secondary section on the form that we're going to help you fill out so you can get, I think it is 18 CE credits. So it's quite a good number of them for those that might need them. All right, and with that, I'm going to pause and see, are there any questions that anybody has? All right, any questions online? If you want to unmute yourself and talk, you're welcome to do that. All right, well then let's talk about standards of conduct. So the reference for this is IRS publication 4961. And this is basically about ethics in the IRS VITA program, right? The mission of the program is to assist eligible taxpayers in preparing their tax returns for free, meet their tax filing requirements. To establish the greatest degree of public trust, volunteers are required to maintain the highest standards of ethical conduct and provide quality experience. So this is the first IRS test that you're going to take. It is 10 questions. It is multiple choice. It is true, false. Imagine what is the most possible right answer as you're going through this test, and that will generally steer you correctly. All right, but we're going to talk about a few more things in detail. So every year, VITA volunteers must do this volunteer standards of conduct. Again, it's an 80% test, 80% right to pass. You still get 2 chances. Then you must agree to adhere to the volunteer standards of conduct when you sign your volunteer agreement. You are required to do that before you can volunteer at a site. And then everybody that is going to do return preparation, quality review, or be an instructor like me must certify in tax law also prior to signing that form. But that form is also not valid until I or one of our other site coordinators have also reviewed the form, checked your ID, and then we sign and date it as well. So it goes through 2 layers to make sure that your certifications are there and correct. All right. The requirements of the standards of conduct. So you must follow the quality site requirements, which I'll talk about on the next slide. You cannot accept payment, ask for donations, or accept refund payments for federal or state tax return preparation from customers. Do not solicit business from taxpayers that you help or use the information that you gain from them for any direct or indirect personal benefit for yourself or for any other specific individual or organization. You cannot knowingly prepare false tax returns. Please do not engage in criminal, infamous, dishonest, notoriously disgraceful conduct or any other conduct that could possibly be deemed to have a negative effect on the VITA programs. And then finally, treat all taxpayers in a professional, courteous, and respectful manner. All right. The sum of it is, right, we're doing this for free. We're volunteers. We're here to help. We get no money for it. We do not ask for cookies. We do not tell them to put 20 bucks in the tip jar. We say thank you and have a great day. Go spend that money however you want to. Okay. The quality site requirements. The first one is certification. So you must have the appropriate tax certification for the return that you're going to prepare. For the most part, it's going to be very easy. Everybody's going to get non-resident certification. You're going to do non-resident returns for like 80% of the time. Makes it super simple. For the people that are residents, we will do advanced certification. That also makes it very simple because that's basically everything that's almost everything that can be done on a return, resident return, is covered under that advanced certification. Number 2 is to follow an intake interview and quality review process. Number 3, to confirm photo identification and taxpayer identification numbers. Number 4, have your reference materials available. We will always have materials available. Number 5, sign your volunteer agreement. Number 6, timely filing, right? April 15th is the due date. They need to get that in by then. Protect the civil rights, right? We are not going to discriminate based on any of those protected categories or any other categories we can identify. The site identification number, right? The IRS is going to know that we helped these people so that if there are problems, they can come back to me and say, Maria, you are doing a terrible job of training. You need to do some work on this. That also goes for the electronic filing identification number. That's just another electronic number to identify what site things came from. And then finally, number 10, security, privacy, and confidentiality, right? We're getting a really good peek into these people's lives, right? We're going to see where they live, how much money they get, some of their personal details about, are they single or married? Do they have kids, right? That's a lot of really confidential information. And so we need to respect that and make sure we keep that private. All right. If you do not do that, terrible things can happen, right? You would have to could be removed from the program. You could be barred, right? You could be put on that naughty list. You could get our sites barred so that we can't help anybody anymore. They could take all of our stuff away, could take all of our money away, and you could theoretically go to jail if you were really, really, really naughty. I've never had anybody come anywhere close to this. I never expect that we ever will. But the IRS does take this sort of thing very, very seriously because they are very earnest about the idea of the public trust. So, what should you do if you discover something that you think is unethical happening at the site, right? I said, don't ask for money. Don't solicit somebody else for business. Don't take their refunds for them. So if you identify a problem, number 1, there is an external reporting process. There is an email here It's on all of our materials that we hand out to the clients. It's on the poster as they walk into the room. If you have any questions or you have something that you don't think is right, email there. Super easy, go for it. Right? As a volunteer, you do have a role in reporting any questionable activity, right? The US tax system is based on the idea that taxpayers will honestly report their income and file their tax returns. And you need to help uphold that. So if there is something that you see that you think is a violation, you can report it to that independent resource. You can also report it to your site coordinator. Site coordinators will have a red shirt on. They're going to be the ones that are kind of in charge of any sites. They are a resource for you if you have a situation where you're not sure, you're uncomfortable. If the site coordinator is the one that you are not comfortable about, come see me is one option. If you think I'm the one that you're not comfortable with, then by all means, please report it to that email account. They will take it very seriously. As a site coordinator, if I see something that is not going the way it should go, I will pull that volunteer aside. I will likely ask that volunteer to leave immediately, and we will have a conversation about it later. It's never happened. I don't want it to happen, but I will definitely do that if I need to. All right. Let's take on the other side of the ethics and moral, right? What do we do if we think that a taxpayer might not be completely telling us the truth, right? One of our requirements is that we cannot knowingly prepare an incorrect or false tax return. All right. If you think somebody is not telling the truth, you should listen to that intuition, right? Especially as you do this a few times, you will start to kind of get a feel for what are kind of typical and reasonable numbers and what is maybe very unusual and warrants some additional investigation, right? Make sure you have a good conversation with those clients, right? Taxes are very complicated. The terms that we use have a very specific meaning. Often those words are used in other contexts that have a different meaning. So our clients, it can make it very confusing for them. Discuss your concerns with your site coordinators, right? They are experienced volunteers. They can help you understand those. But if you as a volunteer are not comfortable, you do not need to help that client, right? We are not going to help them file an incorrect return because we know that it is going to be much more painful for them in the future, even though that $500 refund looks really attractive now. We can remind them that when they sign their return, they are signing under penalties of perjury, that it is, I have examined this return and the schedules and statements, and to the best of my knowledge and belief, it is true, correct, and complete, right? So not only are they filing incorrectly, they're doing a double damage by having signed under penalties of perjury. Again, not common, but there is sometimes temptation in our client. All right. Let's talk about volunteer protection, right? So you are here, you are helping our clients, right? As a volunteer, performing services for a nonprofit, which is North. You don't receive any money for doing this. You are protected from liability for a return that is prepared incorrectly, so long as what you did was within the scope of the program and the scope of your training, and that the harm was not caused by willful or criminal misconduct, gross negligence, reckless misconduct, conscious flagrant indifference, and so on and so forth, to the rights and safety of the individual that was harmed, right? So basically, we do a lot of training, we have processes in place to help make sure that the returns are correct, all right? But we can't always make sure that they do everything right. And if something does go wrong, as long as you did everything right, you did all of the training, you followed the processes, you met the volunteer standards of conduct, you as a volunteer are not going to be liable, right? That person can't try to come back and say, hey, you gave me bad tax advice. Now you have to pay for my, the penalties and interest. That is not the way that it works. And for your own reference, this is not just for the IRS, it's not just for taxpayers. The Volunteer Protection Act is actually an act that applies broadly to all volunteers across any organizations and work that they do in the US. And with that, that is the end of our standards of conduct training. Does anybody have any questions? All right. Anybody? Yes. Where can we get a copy of the material? So the copies of this material are all out on the Moodle course, and the presentation will be uploaded as soon as we're done, and the video will be uploaded as soon as it's processed. We usually, so we'll hand out physical copies of like the 4011s, but we don't usually hand out like all of the other copies, physical copies, they're all electronic. So, and you don't want, right? I mean, it's not, it looks so impressive to have this big, huge copy, but having an electronic so you can find the right text is super helpful for something that's big like this. Right? And these publications, they are all available to you while you're taking the test. So standards of conduct, right? Don't steal from the clients. Don't take their money. Don't let them file an incorrect return as best you can. Let's talk about training for the intake interview and quality review test. This is the second test that you are required to take. It is also a 10-question true-false multiple choice test. So it is very short, relatively simple. And so the training for this is also going to be quite short and simple. There's a link here to the training. There's a link to the handbook, which is like a step-by-step guide. The training and test for this is all focused on resident tax return forms and traditional site preparation processes. So when I say that, a traditional VITA site, the way that the process would work, right? A client would make an appointment or they would walk in, they would bring in all of their documents. They would fill out an intake form, either the 13614C if they're a resident or the 13614NR if they're a non-resident. And that form must always be completely filled out first to make sure that all topics for income, deductions, and credits are considered. Once that form is filled out by the client, a tax volunteer would review that form, make sure everything is filled out, verifies like identity, verifies any questions, talks to the client, make sure that they have the required certifications needed to prepare that return. They do a very thorough review, right? Asking any follow-up questions. And then that tax volunteer would type all of that information into the tax software. A quality reviewer would then come over, review the return, review all of the income documents, review the intake form, make sure everything is correct. In this type of a model, what one tax volunteer does, another volunteer must check. Assuming everything makes it through the quality reviewer, then the client would sign the e-file authorization and consent forms, and then the designated tax volunteer would e-file the return. Right, so that is the traditional process. Come in, give us your stuff, we'll do it for you, sign some things, off you go. That is not the way our program works, right? I mentioned before, we are facilitated self-assistant. We are DIY plus help, right? For us, the client requests access to the software. They use the software and they enter their own information and prepare their own return, and then they file their return. And whenever in that process they want, they can ask for help, right? They can do it by email, they can have an appointment, whatever they need. But the most important thing here is, right, is that the client is preparing their own tax return. We are just helping them through that process. So at our facilitated self-assistance sites, we are not going to use many of those traditional steps, right? We do not have to do an intake form because we are not checking to make sure everything is there. The client is entering all of their information. We are not required to do a quality review, though it's a really good idea and we would love it if all of our clients would do one, but we can't make them do it. But we can still follow most of the same processes. The quality review is one. We can still confirm client identity with a photo ID. Only our members get appointments and we verify photo IDs during a check-in for any in-person clinics. We verify Zoom names versus member names for remote clinics. We also make sure that everybody's certified to the level of return. The tax software will do things that are out of scope for us and that are even out of scope for the VITA clinics. So that is one area that you all need to be kind of ready for, is that you can only help on the things that you have been trained on. So if you do the foreign student test and that's all, and we have a finance student that comes in and who's been doing some stock trading, you cannot help them with that stock trading. You need to send them to somebody that has both foreign student and the advanced test, and then they can help. We have somebody that comes in and they've been doing some cryptocurrency trading. That is out of scope for the IRS VITA program. Software can handle it, but we can't provide any guidance about how to enter that in there. We'll point them to some IRS resources that talk about what they're supposed to do, and they're going to have to go figure that one out themselves. If you are not sure, if you run into a question, is this something that I can help with? I don't remember hearing about it in training. Look at your publications, look to your site coordinator, right? They're going to be able to help you with that. And then I already talked about the quality review. All right. Oops. Sorry about that. All right. So I know that I talked earlier about, what if you don't believe the client? But I will say that in general, right, we are going to want to believe that our clients are honest, right? We will take their word for it, subject to like some reasonableness in there, right? We have a client that comes in and says, yeah, I gave, $25 to this charity for, saving rescue dogs. We'll say, sure, that sounds great. If somebody comes in and says, oh yeah, I gave $25,000 to charity for this client, this rescuing dogs charity, and I look at that and I say, well, gee, you worked on campus and you had $7,000 of income, right? Where did that $25,000 of charitable giving come from, right? That's awesome. That's fabulous. But do you have any documentation to support that? Otherwise, the IRS is not going to believe a charitable contribution that big without some paperwork. So if you have a situation where you're not sure, ask for supporting documentation, get your site coordinator involved. Remember, if you don't feel comfortable, you don't have to help. And that's where your site coordinator is like your tag team to talk with that client about it. All right. And that was the very quick intake interview and quality review training. Does anybody have any questions about that? So this one in particular, because we do not use a standard process, we use the facilitated self-assistance process at our clinics. Use those IRS publications when you take this test, right? They're really good reference guides. You guys don't need to use that information on a regular basis. That's why we're not going to spend 30 minutes going through it all, but use that and to help yourselves. All right. I think I see Grace. Do you have a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, I do. So I'm following you using the account info you sent to us earlier. And I don't know, I have module 1A, but it's locked. I don't know if it's supposed to be open or not, because I don't think you talked about it.
You're right. I did not talk about that. So I was going to talk about the Moodle course at the end of the training today. Okay, how about that?
Oh, okay. I thought you were kind of talking about it based on that. Sorry.
No, it's okay. So I'll talk about the Moodle course here at the end of the NR training. So, and I'll talk about the module 1A as a part of that, okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Yep, no worries. All right. Okay, any other questions? All right, let's move on. Whew. All right, so that is all like Basic process, basic don't steal from the client stuff. Let's get into the real stuff. Okay, my favorite. All right, so let's start with some tax responsibility concepts. So taxes in the US work very differently than they do in many other countries, right? And most of our clients are from another country. In the US, it is every person's individual responsibility to calculate and pay their own taxes. And filing your taxes, sending those forms in, tells the IRS or whatever tax authority what you have calculated for how much tax you owe. You may need to do this even if you don't owe any taxes, and each taxpayer is ultimately responsible for the information on your returns. The IRS will not care that you did not understand the rules. They will say, I am so sorry that you did not understand. Please give us the penalty money and the interest money anyway. The IRS also follows what I would call like a trust but verify system, right? When you file a return, you file it electronically, the IRS will accept it, right? Like in 5 or 10 minutes, super, super fast. It's great. That doesn't mean that they actually agree that the return is correct, right? It just means that it passed like the very first like tests for that. Like, does your name and your social security number and your date of birth match? Actually getting a refund back means it has passed like the next round of tests. They said, yep, okay, we confirm that you had this W-2 that was filed by your employer, those numbers match, whatever secondary tests that they do. The IRS can and does occasionally come back and ask for more information. The hard part is that they never do that quickly, right? Usually, if you're lucky, it's in a year. More likely, it's going to be 2 to 3 years. They will come back and they say, yeah, we can't, we want you to substantiate your $25,000 charitable contribution to the Rescue Dogs of Minnesota. And so even though the IRS may look like they're approving things, the reality is that it's not truly final for many years. And if the IRS believes that you committed fraud, like you committed a crime on purpose, then it's never final. They can always come back and try to get that money back from you. And then finally, the last concept is the idea that if a person is in the US long enough, they will pay taxes like a citizen or permanent resident. But the idea of what is long enough is complicated. And we are going to talk about that with who is a non-resident alien. So, for the IRS, an alien is anyone who is not a citizen of the United States, either by birth or naturalization, right? So this is their definition of this term for tax purposes. A resident alien is going to be taxed the same as a US citizen. They are somebody that has been here, quote, long enough. Some people can still get treaty benefits, although not a lot of them. A non-resident alien is somebody who does not have a green card and has not passed the substantial presence test. And this is the official test that determines the long enough. This test, the substantial presence test, does not apply to an individual that is exempt. Publication 519 is like the Bible for non-resident taxes. It's got all kinds of information in there. It has a very detailed explanation for residency in that if you want to go into more details. For us, it's going to be a little bit of math to figure out if you are a resident or not. So to meet the substantial presence test, you must be physically present in the US for at least 31 days during 2024, and also 183 days during the 3-year period that includes 2024, 2023, and 2022, when you count all of the days in 2024, a third of the days in 2023, and a sixth of the days in 2022. If you meet this test, you are a tax resident for the part of the year that you meet the test. So that means people can have 3 federal tax residency statuses. They could be a non-resident alien for the entire year. They could be a resident alien for the entire year. Or they could be a dual status alien, which means that they're a non-resident for part and then a resident for the other part. And this test is an annual test. So every year, if you are not a US citizen, if you do not have a green card, you would use this test to determine your tax residency. All right. The people that we help at our tax clinics are typically going to be F visa individuals who are academic students. We may see some M visas, which are vocational students. We see also quite a few J visas, which are exchange visitors. And these can be for a lot of different reasons. They can be professors, research assistants. They can also be students, trainees, teachers, and so on. There's a Q visa as well for a cultural exchange. So those are the most common visa types that we're going to see for individuals that are not citizens or permanent residents here in the US. All right. So an exempt individual is an important thing. An exempt individual does not count the days that they are here in the US towards that substantial presence test. This is exempt from the residency test only. It is not exempt from paying taxes. So when I said don't let the clients interpret the rules, this is the first one that always comes up. I'm exempt. I don't have to pay taxes. No, you are exempt from the residency test, but you still may have to pay taxes. So an exempt individual is defined as a student with an F, J, M, or Q visa for their first 5 calendar years that they are in the US. It is for a continuous visit. That would be somebody that came here in 2020. And it's no shame. I use my fingers 2020, 1, 2, 3, and 4. It is a lifetime exemption. So previous student visa visits count. So if they were here as a baby when their parents were here getting PhDs, or they were here for high school, all of those visits would count. And then any part of a day counts for a calendar year, right? It's not a duration test. It is any part of a calendar year. So if you came on December 31st, that would count as that first year of your visit. In addition to the student test, all of the others on J's or Q's are considered teachers or trainees. So a J1 non-student visa, they will be exempt if they were not previously exempt as a teacher, trainee, or student for any part of 2 of the preceding 6 calendar years, which is a horrible way to write this all out. But we have this table, which will hopefully help make everything a little bit more clear to everybody. There we go. Sorry about that. Okay. So current year is 2024. The previous 6 calendar years are 2018 through 2023. So if you were exempt in 2 of those 6 years, you will not be exempt now. If you were not exempt for 2 of 6, then you will be exempt in 2024. So Jane came in 2023. She's only got 1 prior year, so she will be exempt for 2024. Jill came in 2022. So her 2 exempt years are 2022 and 2023. Now in 24, she's not going to be exempt from the substantial presence test. So she's going to use that test to determine her tax residency. Likewise, Joanne, she was here to get her undergraduate degree, and she's come back now as a teacher. She was here for 5 years back in the day, but only 2 of them fall in our 2 of 6 timeframe, 2018 and 2019. But they still are, even though it was a teacher or a student rather. So she's going to also be not exempt in 2024. Julie, on the other hand, she waited long enough. She didn't come back. And so now she's only got 1 out of those 6 years where she was exempt. So she is going to be exempt again in 2024. All right. This is a really good table for you to use to think about if you ever have any questions about whether somebody is exempt or not. All right. Okay. Family members on a -2 visa will use the same rules. They do not automatically have the same status. So depending on when they arrived, they may or may not have the same residency status as their spouse or their parent. One other really important thing to note, right? Somebody that's here on a -2 visa, that is a dependent visa. But dependency for tax purposes is different than a dependent visa. Before and after the period of exemption, that individual is going to be subject to the substantial presence test. We have a lot of students that come here for a couple of weeks to check out colleges, right? They come in the spring, early summer, come in on a B1, B2 visa. They're not exempt, right? But they're only going to be here for 10 days, 14 days, something like that. They're not going to make that 183 number. But those 10 days or those 14 days, those would still count towards the substantial presence test. All right. In your little booklet that you guys are going to get next week, you will see there's a lovely little flow tree. Are you an exempt individual? And as a reminder, so the purpose of the form 8843, which we're going to talk about next week, is to claim exempt days, right? So if you are an exempt individual, you need to tell the IRS this. And thank you, Adora. You do that by filing form 8843. So you only need to do that if you are exempt from the substantial presence test. You just say, hey, here, I'm a student, I'm a teacher, this is where I am. This is the school I'm at. All right. So then who is a resident alien, right? A student that's been here for more than 5 years and passes that substantial presence test. A teacher or researcher who is present here in the US for more than those 2 out of 6 years and passes the substantial presence test. In addition, somebody that is a non-resident or that is a dual status alien who is married to a resident at the end of the year can choose to be treated as a resident for the whole year. All right, this can be sometimes advantageous to people because the rules for taxes are slightly different between residents and non-residents. But it is an option. It is never required for them to choose to do that. All right, dual status aliens. For a dual status alien, you are a resident for part of the year and you are a non-resident for part of the year. There are special filing requirements. Generally, this happens when somebody enters the US and passes the substantial presence test in that first year. Very common with people on an H-1B visa. If you are an exempt individual and you receive permanent resident status, that would also potentially make you a dual status alien. It can also be in your final year if you leave the US after departing and you've already met the substantial presence test. These returns are out of scope for all IRS VITA tax clinics, and the software will not do them, and they are complicated. So we are very happy to have them go to somebody that knows what they're doing because we don't want to mess with that. We want them to find somebody that knows how to do that stuff, and that is not us. All right, so let's practice a couple of questions. All right, Sam, an F1 student visa holder, came to the US in 2021. Is he going to be a resident or a non-resident? We're going to do that. All right. If you think he is a resident, please raise your hand in person and give me some sort of a thumbs up or something like that if you're remote. Does anybody think Sam is a resident? All right. You all are fabulous students because he is in fact a non-resident, right? So if we count 21, 22, 23, 24. So he is in his 4th year of exemption. So he is going to be a non-resident alien. All right. Sam's wife came with him on an F2 visa. So she is not a student. She is here as a dependent. Is she going to be a resident or non-resident? If you think, let's do it the other way. If she is going to be a non-resident, please raise your hand or give me a thumbs up. Non-resident, raise your hand or thumbs up remotely. Yes, very good. You guys are also very good. That is exactly right. She uses the same rules, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. She is a non-resident alien. All right, let's talk about Juanita. Juanita is a teacher. She came here on December 30th, 2022. She has been here in the US ever since. Is she going to be a resident or non-resident in 2024? Let's go back to the original. If she is a resident, you think, please raise your hand or give me a thumbs up. If you think Juanita is going to be a resident for 2024, please raise your hand or give me a thumbs up. All right, she will be a resident because she is a teacher, so she uses that 2 out of 6, so the peace sign for her, right? 2022, 2023, so she is no longer exempt. For 2024, she's going to count all of the days of the year. There were 366 days in 2024. That is way more than the 31. That is way more than that 183. She is going to pass that test. She is going to be a resident alien for the year. All right. Joan is here as an F1 student. She got married to Bob, who got a green card in 2024. Oop.
Was this your question?
That was my question. No wonder everybody looked at me so confused. Thank you. I apologize to everybody here in the room. All right, let's talk about Joan. So she has an F1 visa. She got married to Bob, who got a green card. If they choose to file a joint return, is Joan going to be a resident, non-resident, or part-year resident? Let's say residents up high, part-year residents kind of medium, non-residents just completely down. Super high, medium, low. Yes. Give me any kind of sign on the remote if you want to, but yes, she's going to be a resident, right? She can choose to file a joint return with Bob. She can be a resident for the year. At a very high level, the really simple differences are US residents pay tax on their worldwide income. It does not matter where you earn the money. The US government wants part of it. And you also have to report your worldwide financial assets because there were naughty people in the US that hid money in Swiss banks. And so now everybody has to tell about all the money they have. As a non-resident, you don't have to do that. It's only US income. We don't care about what money you have anywhere else in the world. But you don't get some of the same credits and deductions that residents get. So that's the pluses and minuses for filing the really high level for filing residents and non-residents. All right, let's do one more here. Let's do Marie. You are helping Marie do her return. She is a junior. She was here as a F2 student while her father was getting her doctorate. So she was here from 2009 to 2011. They went back home. She came back as a J1 student this time in 2022 and has not left. For 2024 federal tax purposes, is she going to be a resident alien or a non-resident alien? Let's say, give me hands up or give me a symbol on your screen if you think she is going to be a resident alien. I'm going to count behind my back. Okay. Hands up if you think she's a resident. Give me a thumbs up online. Otherwise, nothing. She is going to be a resident. That is right. So 9, 10, 11, those are her first 3 years, right? She came back as a student, a J1 student. So she's still using that 5-year numbers, 22, 23. So those were her 5 years. 2024, she's no longer exempt. She is going to need to use the substantial presence test. She was here the whole time, makes life really easy. She is going to be a resident alien. All right, we're going to do, I think this is the very last one here. So Feng came to the tax center, to our clinic. He needs help. Came here as a J1 in 2022 to teach at the university for 2 years. He brought his wife and child. They're both on J2 status. The university just hired his wife, to start working in the fall 2024 semester. So, do we think Feng is a non-resident alien? Raise your hand if you think he's a non-resident alien. or give me a thumbs up online. He is not, right? So he is a teacher, 22, 23. So we're using the 2 out of 6 test. So in 2024, we're going to count the number of days that he was present. He hasn't left at all. So he is going to be a resident alien for 2024. All right. What about his wife? She came here on the J2, but then she started working. Who thinks she is a non-resident alien? Raise your hand. That is a completely trick question. She is also a resident alien. The fact that she is working now has nothing to do with it at all. Whether somebody is working doesn't make any difference in their federal tax residency status. All right. Even if the fact that they're earning money in violation of their residency status or earning money in violation of other US laws, the IRS doesn't care about that part. All of the money that's coming in, they want you to report and pay taxes on. Doesn't matter if it's what the circumstances were behind you earning that money. So they are both going to be residents because they're using that 2 out of 6 rule. 22, 24 are the 2, 2024, 22 and 23 are those 2 years. 24, they ask, or they use a substantial presence test. All right, we're going to skip Felix. All right. Any questions about this? So federal tax residency status is a really big deal for the foreign student test. There are quite a few questions about, is this person a resident? Is this person a non-resident? Are they exempt or are they not exempt? So there will be practice on this to make sure you guys are good at this one as well. Yes.
About asylum seekers and refugees.
Yes.
The same requirements, or it's different?
So asylum seekers and refugees are not exempt from the substantial presence test. So they will just use that test. Whatever their days here in the US are, they'll just count the number of days, look at the residency test and go from there.
So the rules are the same for them, right?
Yes, the rules are the same for them. Any other questions? Okay. All right, so that is the end of our non-resident training for today. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Moodle and homework. Then we're going to break for 5 minutes and come back to resident tax training. So, all right, so, pardon me. Everybody, like I said earlier, everybody should have received an invitation to the Moodle course, the non-resident training course. If you did not, that means that I don't have your information in our volunteer roster. Please send an email to me and I will be happy to add you. You can also put a message in the chat here and we will, I'll make sure we grab those as well. So let's talk about why we're doing this, right? So the online course is a repository of all of our training session information and reference information. So the presentation from today, the video from today, all of the links to the IRS publications and forms and instructions, that will all be out there. All right. But to be successful as a volunteer, you need more practice than what we can do here in our training sessions. So rather than having like double the number of training sessions, we do training session, a little bit of Moodle homework, training session, some Moodle homework. Participation is required in this, right? This helps you get ready to help others. It helps you be successful at passing the IRS tests. I can promise you the people that passed last year were generally the people that like tried to skip over and take the test before they completed all of the Moodle assignments. So please work through that. It will make the difference to help you be successful. It also helps us collect all of our required IRS paperwork. And then you should also note, so everybody's going to be added into different groups. That's going to be based on the school that you are from generally. If you're from a school or just north, if you're like a referral from the IRS, that just lets us target things based on your location. We also have a path for volunteers who last year completed our Moodle course and the volunteer readiness check. I don't think that I've added everybody as a returning volunteer yet. So like Grace, I think you may not have been added to that group so that you're not getting access to that module. But for everybody that is, you will have the option of skipping a lot of the modules. This is only your second or third year. I would say maybe you should still do it just to make sure that you're really up to speed again. But if you've been doing this for 5-10 years, then you're probably good to go and skip over a lot of the basics in between. All right. Generally, for all of the course material, you're going to have 2 attempts to pass things, and an 80% is going to be a pass, roughly. You have to try to pass everything, but there's not going to be like any penalty, immediate penalty if you don't, right? I'm not going to look at this and say, okay, your average grade is 75, you can't volunteer. It's nothing like that. However, again, usually if you can't pass these modules, though, that's a sign that you're going to struggle with the test. You must pass the volunteer agreement module, which is the one that has your IRS certification results, your volunteer agreement, and your ID. And you must pass the volunteer readiness check. And that one is a 90% to pass. There's a quiz. There are 12 questions. You get 3 shots at it. You get new questions every time. And then you have to prepare 2 non-resident practice client scenarios and 1 resident if you do the resident training. The goal is to complete that by 2/18, which is our first tax clinic. The deadline is 2/28. So at that point, we're into the tax season and we need to be done with training. You have multiple attempts. I'm not going to say unlimited attempts, but you've got a lot of tries to do that. But every time you try, it's going to be a new scenario. And the reason why is that at a tax clinic, you are really acting as the quality reviewer for our clients. So you need to be able to come in to a new client, a new situation, and to be able to accurately prepare and diagnose that return to make sure that it's going to be correct. So you will have lots of practice before this point. Like I said, lots of people did it last year, but that is serious. We want to make sure that you know this is a requirement and we will hold to it. All right, so for first week, we have 4 modules for you to do. There's a volunteer data module. It's a questionnaire. Let us know if you want to do resident taxes. Let us know some other stuff. Standards of conduct, right? Don't steal from the clients. What is the most right thing you could possibly do? You'll be good. Intake interview, that'll give you some practice looking through those publications. And then non-resident alien. Who is a non-resident alien or not? Get some practice of that. 5 to 10 multiple choice true false questions. Go for it. You guys should all have access. Generally, you're going to be able to do first one, get it done, then the second one will open up. Once you're through that, then the next one will open up, then the next one will open up. We will let everyone know when the Lincoln Learn system is live so that you can create an account and take those first 2 tests, the standard of conduct, intake interview, and quality review. And with that, are there any questions on the non-resident side? Sorry, God, I'm so sorry. I keep forgetting that. Okay. All right. It is. I'm going to stop the share. I'm going to stop the share. I'm going to keep the share of the presentation. All right. Okay, we are going to go take a break. It is 6:46, so we're going to take 6:51 p.m. is when we're going to restart for the resident training. If you only want to do non-resident, you are welcome to leave now. You can leave the Zoom if you're remote. You can leave in person here if you want to. We hope a lot of you will stick around for the resident. It's only 20%, but those people need our help just like everybody else does. Take a few minutes and we'll get started here shortly. Yeah. I think I'm fine with that.